We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can get $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Let's take a quick look over at the Hart Awards over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Austin Matthews right now sitting at plus 200 to win the Hart. Remember, a couple weeks ago, he's only at that 12-1 price. Has whittled his way down to plus 200. Second in the field, only behind Nathan McKinnon here. Started to separate himself a little bit from Nikita Kucherov and Connor McDavid. Nikita Kucherov plus 300. Connor McDavid plus 360 here. Austin Matthews sitting at that plus 200. If you still like it, you can go get it over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE New York 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League.
Welcome, everyone, to the Rink Rat Report Podcast. Recording this one. Good thing we timestamp these when we're recording them because we missed the Tanev trade by, I think, 20 minutes last time we're recording this one. March 5th at 8:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, joined by Jason.
Excited. Trade deadline season is around the corner. Quick thoughts on the trade deadline before we actually get into stuff. This year feels like one of the more quiet years. It's going to be one of the more quiet years. Sure. It feels like the year we traded for, the year that Foligno and Hall were traded, there weren't a lot of moves that year. I think it was because of the bubble situation. Yeah, but I think it's going to be similar to that. Last year and the year before, we were spoiled at left, right, center. A lot of moves, not a lot of big moves, but a lot of moves either way. But
that year we saw David Riddick get acquired for a third-round pick just as insurance. We saw, what was his name? He went from Vancouver to LA. We acquired him for a fifth-round pick as insurance.
As a defenseman. Who was it?
As a defenseman. Insurance. This guy was a left-handed defenseman. He was like the 9th-string defenseman on the Leafs. We gave up a fifth for him.
I'm gonna find that. He
did the Barbie girl dance.
Riley. We also got Riley Nash for a seventh. Stuck him on LTIR.
That was like for LTIR, and he played in the playoffs. He stunk,
but he was terrible. Yeah, that's what I remember most of him. But
just that David Riddick deal, I remember because Freddie Anderson was like, "I'm not healthy. I'm healthy. I'm healthy-ish. I don't know if I'll be." And it was like, okay, we literally have no other goalies to go out and acquire, so you had to pay a third-round pick for David Riddick. Ugh. Anyways. What was his name? Ben Hutton.
Ben Hutton.
And he played like 2 games. He was the 5th string by the time playoffs came around. And it was like, okay, we really needed this. Thanks.
How many games did he play for us? He played
like 2 or 3.
Played 4 games for us.
And then you couldn't play. And because like you had to use him, then for some reason Sandin sat a bunch of games, and then just a disaster of a season. But anyways. So we're going to get into a lot of trade deadline. The trade deadline is Friday. So a couple of days away. We'll see what the Leafs do. The Leafs did make a trade after our last episode. Unfortunately, couldn't put something together this weekend. It was Sausages weekend, so that took up some time. And then we're going to talk about the games a little bit and what are the Leafs going to do? What will we see them do before trade deadline time hits on Friday, or whatever the hell you want to call it. But first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Manscaped. Top of the morning to y'all. I'm not Irish. I don't want to say that. This episode is brought to you by the St. Patrick's Shamrock Shavers, Manscaped. This year, don't just chase rainbows. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun with the little leprechaun. Nice. Okay, guys. We're getting bolder and bolder with these ad reads every single time. With the leaders in the below the kilt care, say goodbye to your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and use code RINKRAT, that is RINKRAT, for 20% off and free shipping. That is RINKRAT. Manscaped.com. Host to share a funny grooming misadventure or life before the golden touch of Manscaped. They write this on every single one. I do not have 52 misgrooming. I don't have one misadventure grooming. And they want me to do 52 of these. I don't know why they always include that talking point, but we love Manscaped. The product is fantastic. Check them out. Manscaped.com, Rink Rat.
What happened to the New Year's resolution one? I guess because New Year's is like so
they
far
gave us a new one. They gave us a new one. They just include the same talking point.
Ah, okay.
It's like,
no, I mean like wasn't one of the talking points keeping up your New Year's resolution or something?
Oh, that was one. But they always include, misadventure. Yeah, I cut my dick off. Sorry, I don't know. Like, all right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Lyubushkin, because this one was very polarizing in terms of the player. Well, the Leafs acquired Ilya Lyubushkin again, such as they did in 2021, I believe it was. There was the 21-22 playoffs they had him for. As you remember, they put him on a pairing with Riley after they got him from Arizona. If you remember, I think they sent a second and Nick Ritchie the other way, and I think they got a pick back as well. I didn't want to look. Who cares? Doesn't matter. So essentially with Ilya Lyubushkin, a lot of people were kind of torn on how he looked with the Leafs the first time. His underlying numbers didn't look the greatest. He had great defensive metrics in Arizona. It kind of went down when he went to the Leafs. And then he went in free agency and signed a 2-year, $2.75 million deal with Buffalo. His first year in Buffalo, the numbers were terrible. His time in Anaheim this year, where he was traded for a 4th-round pick, his numbers were also not very good there too. So the Leafs traded a 3rd-round pick. Jason, do you have the year on that one?
It was next year's 3rd, 2025.
2025 3rd, and a 6th-round pick which Carolina will take on, and that is because Ilya Lyubushkin is going to be 75% retained. So 75% of $2.75 million is being retained between Anaheim and Carolina. And that's why he's a 3rd and a 6th. So Ilya Lyubushkin, the player, what is he? From what I've seen, he's the same guy. He is the same guy that he was. Oh, God, lovely. He was the same guy that he was when the Leafs first acquired him a couple of years ago. He has not lost a step. He has not suffered a major injury. He's still the same guy. He's a 3rd pairing quality guy. He's a defensive leaning in terms of his ability. He's going to clear the front of the net. His first, he can, in terms of his skating, he's not slow, I would say, at all. His skating is okay. He's decent at being the first guy on the puck in terms of the retrieval and the defensive end. Sometimes, doesn't throw the greatest passes around, I will say. In terms of offensive ability, there isn't much there. I do like, though, how he likes to he knows to jump up into the rush to create offense going back the other way. And he is fast enough to keep up, but that's what he is. He's a defensive leaning 3rd pairing defenseman that the Leafs are paying what's the final cap? It's 687 below
6875.
6875. So think about it this way. If they call up Max Lajoie, if they call up Marshall Rafai, if they call up Topi Niemela, all those guys have a higher cap hit than what Ilya Lyubushkin is playing for on this roster. That's mainly what costed them. I took a look at how much does cap space cost. When you look at the Chris Tanev deal, which we can talk about it, we don't have to, whatever. When you look at the Chris Tanev deal, the New Jersey Devils took on $1.125 million in cap space in that deal. They retained $1.125 million in cap space for just this year. Oh, Lord. They don't tell you the difficult parts of podcasting when you first get into it. It gets really dry. But 1.125 to New Jersey, right? They were able to pick up a 4th round pick in 2026 for that. When you look at other deals, 6th round pick to Carolina for $687,500, right? So how much is cap space worth? Well, it's worth about like $1 million is worth about like a 5th round pick ish, we'll say, right? A 5th round pick in the next year's draft. That's actually what Bonino went for last year, I believe, right? So you have to think about it that wise. Over $2 million being retained on Ilya Lyubushkin. So like how much is that alone worth? That alone is worth that alone is worth the majority of the deal, I would say.
Yeah, and like I don't know how like amazing this is, but there is a salary cap relief calculator made from Matt Perry, who is the former director of hockey analytics over at the Arizona Coyotes. So the draft compensation equivalent of retaining of salary cap relief of $2 million is the 52nd overall pick. Now, this is at the beginning of the season. So if we say there's 33% of the season left, it's a mid 3rd round pick.
So so you got Ilya Lyubushkin for like you took on Ilya Lyubushkin. Him himself is worth about what? Like a 6th round pick or so. Beginning of the season, he was traded to Anaheim for a 4th round pick. So just a little less than that, you'll say, right? That's Ilya Lyubushkin. The rest of it was to get him for below minimum deal, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the fit, like think about this as well. In terms of the Leafs defense, how it's built right now, right? You have Morgan Rielly, you have insert right-handed defenseman here, you have TJ Brody, Timothy Liljegren, and then you have Benoit McCabe. For that top 4 that I just listed, who defends the net front well there? Nobody.
No one.
Nobody. What happened against the Panthers last year? You got ruined in front of the net. You had a field day in front of the net against Tampa because Eric Cernak was out and nobody else could move Ryan O'Reilly or John Tavares. So Andrei Vasilevsky could not see a single puck. You went to the Panthers series and these garbage defensemen, Radko Gudas is actually a serviceable, good defenseman, but he's big and strong. I'm having the best time right now. Just coughing up cat hair. Radko Gudas and Mark Stahl had a field day in front. Even Aaron Ekblad, too. What happens in the playoffs? Hack, 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 hack. You're allowed to do that. They call maybe 2 penalties on a team in a single game. The amount of liberties you can take in front of the net is insane. Now you have Benoit, McCabe, and Lyubushkin in your lineup. Although, like I listed 2 guys where you're like, those guys are 6th defensemen, maybe. Like adding that little bit of net front security is really helpful because the Leafs don't really have that outside of that. Like Lajoie, who defends the net?
No, they have no one.
Right now.
They have no one.
Nobody at all.
Yeah.
So I like adding that little bit into the decor. I think it was really lacking. I think the people are kind of sleeping on the Leafs net front and tipping ability like right now, and their net front defense as well. Like in terms of offensively, like last year, O'Reilly did a great job in the 1st round. Last year, Tavares as well, which you still have Tavares. Fantastic. Like Bertuzzi, can he fill that? Maybe at 5-on-5, I'd say. Seen it here and there. The first line, well, you have Matthews and Nyes, so maybe there. 3rd line, as I said, maybe the Bertuzzi. Fourth line, just get the puck out kind of thing. So it's okay, we'll say.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
but my major point was defending the net front. That's what he
Yes.
brings. At least he brings something to the lineup.
Yeah. Well, I think also when we discuss this trade, we got to also discuss the context around it too, right? The trade happened literally the night after the Arizona Coyotes game happened. And I don't know if people were paying attention to that game, but Mark Giordano got hurt halfway. I think it was halfway through the first period. Mark Giordano got hurt.
Great chance too.
Got concussed. Who knows when he's going to be back? He's 40 years old and he's pretty tough concussion there. And so the Leafs had 5 defensemen. Mm-hmm. And instead of rolling 5 defensemen, Sheldon Keefe decided to use Mitch Marner as a D. So I went to that game. I sat and watched 15 minutes of Mitch Marner playing right-handed defenseman. 15 minutes, by the way, is more than William Lagesson played that game. So the situation that the team was in, their 7th defenseman, right? Whatever you want to consider Connor Timmins to be. Is he the 7th defenseman? I don't know. I don't think he really is. I don't think he has much trust either here. But their 7th defenseman.
He's a top 4 because he's right-handed.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, right? But William Lagesson doesn't have the trust of this team to go up against the Arizona Coyotes and play minutes, period, in the game. So that's the first point that needs to be thought about, right? Because I'm sorry, if Mitch Marner is 3rd in 5-on-5 points per 60 over the last 5 years. He is one of the highest scoring point forwards in the NHL. This is obvious stuff here, right? He's also a great two-way player. You are taking that away and you're putting him on D, which he is worse at. Very much.
Remember last year when Keefe would actually just do that?
And it was crazy.
And he got walked by Nico Hischier.
Yeah. He's not a defenseman, but also imagine David Pastrnak went out and played D because one of their D got hurt. Imagine Nikita Kucherov went out and played D because one of their D got hurt.
Well,
imagine Connor McDavid because the Edmonton Oilers D suck. Imagine he had to play fucking defense. Like that. Do you know how fucking stupid this is? I'm sorry, I'm swearing, but the fact that people aren't paying attention to that or considering that when they're talking about this trade. Listen, if you're outside of Leafs Nation and you weren't aware of that situation, fine. You don't know. That's fair. But I'm sorry. That would be national news if those guys were playing defense. For some reason, when Mitch Marner does it, because I guess we saw it a little bit last year, it's not. It's literally the dumbest thing ever. They should never do it unless we're talking about a 6-on-5 scenario. Fine. I don't care. Throw out 5 forwards. That's different. He played 15 minutes on defense that game. That is stupid. That is beyond stupid. So going out to get a defenseman so that you don't have to do that against the Arizona Coyotes? I don't care what the acquisition cost is. This is needed at this point. Yeah, there's many other reasons I'm going to get into in a sec here, but go ahead.
But also, you remember what happened against Vegas?
What happened?
They had 6 left-handed defensemen and couldn't move the puck. Yeah. So there was that. But also, it would have been national news. Imagine Micah Parsons just had to go play O-line.
Yeah, this is just that's
if
so
Micah
dumb.
Parsons ended up playing O-line, that's literally the equivalent. Because then you have some D-line guys that they're pretty good still on the Cowboys, so they can hold their own there. But Micah Parsons having to play on the O-line, that's Mitch Marner having to play defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, but, or CeeDee Lamb trying to play cornerback, right? Honestly, maybe he'd be good at it because he's also just an absolute insane athlete. But anyways, that's something that I'm going to get into a ton of other reasons why I think the trade was still beneficial for the team, but that is the main reason that no one is has mentioned at all. No one says this. I'm sorry,
they have literally nobody.
They have no one. This is a necessity. So.
And hold on, your one right-handed defenseman, what did he do last night?
He got absolutely worked. He's also a guy who the coach doesn't trust. So it makes the situation tougher. So you already covered a ton of reasons why this trade is good. You get him you get Lyubushkin at less than league min. You give up a 3rd and a 6th. I don't think that's really that much to give up for a player like that. We've already seen him fit with this team. We've already seen him fit with Morgan Rielly, right? All he has to do is defend the blue line, not allow carry-ins, force dump-ins or
He
force
doesn't
blue
do a
line
very good job
stand-ups
of that.
and defend in zone. That's his role.
Mhm.
That's it. That's it. That's a very simple game. Not asking him to do a lot, and Morgan Riley will do the rest. That's the goal for him in the playoffs. So that's one of the reasons why I like this trade here. It creates a good pairing for Morgan Riley, which we seem to need every single year. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it creates continuity within the rest of your lineup. Obviously, Timothy Lillard gets absolutely walked last night against the Bruins. But still, it allows you to kind of keep the consistency that you've had where if we take out that game, TJ Brody, Timothy Lillard has been pretty good this year. Jake McCabe and Simon Benoit have been great this year. So it allows you to keep the continuity of those two lines together. On top of that, you can now kind of listen, again, this last game, we'll get into it a little bit more, but you can kind of roll these lines relatively evenly and confidently against majority of the opponents. Maybe not the third pairing of TJ Brody and Timothy Lilligren, but at the very least, you can now roll Morgan Riley out against competition that you're not too afraid of. Because the alternative was him with I don't know who. Like, Lagesson. I actually don't know who he would play with Lagesson, right? Like who like, so that's it. Like you can't trust him against anyone. No. At least you get a little bit more trust going into it. Also, again, like you mentioned all this stuff, the net front D thing is important. Is he an offensive defenseman? No. Is he like a great puck mover? No. But like, does he really need to be? Like, you can have a simple game and succeed in the playoffs. We've seen plenty of players do that, and he did well for us in the playoffs. Jay Fresh, I don't know what's wrong with that guy, but
no, don't go calling out other people.
But that's not it. I'm sorry, that's not it. He posted a picture of Lyubushkin's of the playoff stats for the season that Lyubushkin was with the Leafs, saying like Lyubushkin doesn't do well defending entries. He was the third best defenseman defending entries in the playoffs that year. So I don't know what he was talking about.
I think it was chances.
But he was also just slightly above average beside Hampus Lindholm and Mackenzie Weegar. So again,
exactly,
those are probably bad players to be around, I guess. You don't want to be near those guys in those areas. But again, like, I think it's not this. I think people are making a mountain out of a molehill out of this. It's a good trade for the team. The team needed to make the move. They didn't give up much. They gave up a third and a sixth, which isn't even equivalent to a late second. Like, they didn't give up that much. So
you got a guy. You got a guy that can play in your lineup. Essentially, you got a guy that can play in your lineup. I hope it's not the last move that they've made simply because, Riley, Lyubushkin, Benoit, McCabe, and Brody Lilligren would probably be the worst defensive core going into the playoffs out of like pretty much every team. I can't really imagine another team has a worse defensive core than that, in my opinion. Unless you're like, hey, I think doubted really Riley going into the past three playoffs, and he's played fantastic. So
I think you're underrating the McCabe Benoit pair as well, like incredibly. They've been fantastic this year. They've been a really good defensive pairing this year, like really, really good, really good.
Where do they rank? I know they've been good.
They've been good. They're both minimum 80th percentile on D, according to the models that I look at. But again, like just from the eye test, you can tell that they've been good.
Yeah, they have been good. Benoit's been involved more offensively recently, actually, too. Which has been incredible.
They don't have a great decor, but I think you're underrating them a bit when you say it's the worst decor that would make the playoffs.
Florida has a better decor. We can go through it right now. Florida has a better decor. Boston has a better decor. Rangers have a better decor. Carolina has a better decor. Okay, you're better than Philadelphia. Congratulations.
Not the worst, right?
Like, so Detroit, debatably, sure. I'll debate that one. Like, I'll debate that the Leafs are better than Detroit. Edmonton, list out Edmonton's D because they have a lot of weird ones. Like Bouchard's a great defenseman, but he's good.
Evan Bouchard, Cody Ceci, Brett Kulak, Vincent Deschernay.
I kind of like Edmonton's a little bit more. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, that's fair.
But again, like how many have I listed that were better than? Not many.
You're right. Listen, we need to make another move. Obviously, like I'm not saying
to make another move.
For sure. But that was also the purpose of why you got Ilya Lyubushkin for $600K, right? Like if he did, listen, if you don't do another move, then maybe the deal isn't as good as we once thought it was. But there's space.
Yeah,
Like you don't get him retained at all if you're not going to make another move.
Exactly.
Like you don't. So
it gives you flexibility, but like if it's flexibility to sit on your thumbs and do nothing, then that's kind of a tough break there. I will say this. Do you want to get into the trade board next, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's just do the trade board. We can skip through, we can skip past the games. The people
I will say this. I think the Leafs are going to get Sean Walker. I think that's going to be the move they're going to make.
Interesting.
And we're probably not going to love the price because the prices are outrageous. But I'm guessing the Leafs go after Sean Walker because it seemed like Philadelphia was going to re-sign him and Nick Seeler. But from what I'm reading, it doesn't look like they're going back.
Okay. So all right, let's talk about let's go into the trade bait board then. Where did you hear this Walker stuff, or you just kind of gut feeling?
It was from some Flyers report. I'll look it up. You get into the trade board.
So I was just gonna say, like, we kind of hinted at what we feel we need. Is that we probably feel we need like another right shot defenseman, as we're talking about Sean Walker right now. So I'm on board with that. I wanted to kind of go through the all the needs that the Leafs have, and then kind of look at the players that are mentioned on trade boards and see which ones we like and which ones we don't like. So obviously the first need I talked about, right-hand D, we got that out of the way, or a D, period. Like let's focus on right-hand D though, because we probably need that more than anything else, it feels like still. And then also I think last week we talked about this. I said, like, I have faith in the Domi line. Time's running up right now. I don't think you can roll with that line in the playoffs. You were right about that. And I think we need probably a second line center or a third pseudo second line center who's like a third line center, but we'll be playing with like Nylander and Bertuzzi or Domi on the wing, so that he's actually like can be elevated by those guys, so he doesn't have to be that talented. And I think those are the two biggest needs that I want to look into. Starting with the right-handed D, though, you mentioned.
So here's from Frank Saravalli. Still 3 days to go, but sounds increasingly unlikely that the Flyers will be re-signing both Sean Walker and Nick Seeler. They've got a good feel on what both will cost. Meantime, they're fielding trade offers for both and will weigh return versus extension. One likely traded. So
that's interesting because I didn't know this was a rule. I didn't know this was like a thing, but they recently made it so that you can't attach conditions on players if they were to get extended. You cannot attach conditional picks anymore on extension. So that's probably like most likely why this trade, like you said, might be a little bit bigger than people expect. I feel like if the Leafs do get Sean Walker, I don't see why he wouldn't sign here, why he wouldn't extend here unless the Leafs wouldn't want him. He's from Ontario, which is always an easy thing to bring up. I feel like he's the type of guy who would just want to play here. So if we get him, I think that's a good fit. Sean Walker's has been my number one target the entire trade season, the entire time. I think that was the guy who we should get.
Where's he from in Ontario?
Keswick,
Ontario. Correct.
So
where did he play junior?
I'm going to scroll down.
I've already told you this. Newmarket Hurricanes.
Yes. York Simcoe Express minor midget as well.
Yes. With my guy, Taylor Chick.
So yeah, I like Sean Walker. Is he big? No, but like you by getting Lyubushkin, you filled that hole. You tick that box already, right? So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Sean Walker. Let's assume we don't get Sean Walker though. There's a couple other names that
if they do get Sean Walker, so right-handed defenseman, insert right-handed defenseman, you pay a good amount for him. Who comes out?
Timothy Liljegren. It's a tale as old as time with this team now. Is it like the fourth playoffs in a row where we've seen like maybe third? It might be the fourth. I actually don't remember. Third?
No, I'd be third.
Third playoffs in a row.
The series against Montreal, like he played 11 games that year.
Okay, so 3 years in a row now where Liljegren comes in and says and plays during the season. He looks pretty good in extended periods of time. Comes playoff time, can't handle it. He just can't. Period. He gives up too many big event negative plays, and you see that throughout his game. And it's this, and I think it was Chris Johnson who said this on the Athletic Report, but it's the same story over and over again where Liljegren looks good in the season, doesn't play for us in the playoffs. Offseason comes into training camp, looking for Liljegren to establish himself so that we can essentially so that we can play him in the playoffs. And this is now year 3 of that happening, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. Year 1, you get it, right? It's his first kind of second year, really playing meaningful minutes. Didn't establish something. Okay, fine. Give him another crack at the kick at the can. Last year, didn't work.
They kind of screwed him last year.
Yeah, fair.
Being real.
Yeah, fair. But again, you don't screw him if you feel confident that he's good enough, right?
Well, yeah, sorry. Kind of screwed him in the sense that, okay, they started playing him less. They put him in awkward roles. But also, it's why does it take so much for this guy to play well?
Yeah.
Why does it take so much massaging and so much, okay, we have to put him in this role at this time and this. And if he doesn't get under this, it's kind of what other defenseman has ever gotten this leeway, right?
Yeah, no.
So it's we'll see. Honestly, we're recording this one. You have to remember this. We're recording this one. You're probably going to be listening to this one after Timothy Liljegren's debatably worst game I've seen in a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. He was not good. He was
really difficult to record shit and say good things about a guy that's been kind of up and down-ish. He's been pretty good this year overall.
Yeah,
we'll say that. But he played like dog shit last night against a good team that you could be paired against in the playoffs.
That you're most likely paired against in the playoffs right now with the way that the standings look. You're over 50% chances, are just a random number thrown out by me, but I wouldn't doubt it that it's incorrect. You're over 50% chance of playing against the Boston Bruins, and he got dog walked by their first to their fourth line, and that's not okay. That's not okay. So that's the problem with
5-on-5 everything.
So
tough go at it.
If Timothy Liljegren is not, so if you get Sean Walker, right? You now have.
I wouldn't doubt if why would Timothy Liljegren not go the other way then?
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, do you think he goes the other way in this trade?
I don't. I think that Phil. Why would if Philadelphia's kind of retooling-ish?
It makes sense, right?
I could see that, and then Timothy Liljegren would be playing playoff hockey again because they're in a playoff spot,
and he's going to look great with them. You already know. You already freaking know.
I know. But that's the thing, also. Sometimes it takes a big event in your life, a big kick in the ass to really turn things around for you. And then for a team to put a belief in you, right? Because they have no other options to turn around a player. And unfortunately that could happen with any number of Leafs players that are on the chopping block kind of thing, right?
The only thing I would say though with that, I just took a look and I forgot how many Ristolainen, Drysdale, and
injuries they have.
Yeah, well, injuries, but injuries to guys who are right-handed D. So moving forward, if they're looking to keep those guys, where does Timothy Liljegren fit in there, right? So
that's true too. So maybe they don't want him.
Maybe they don't want him, but hey, maybe you just do what you did with Rasmus Sandin last year and just flip him if you can get a first for him. If you can get a first for him, I would do that trade probably.
Everyone's going for a first. Insert random name here is going for a first. All right. So how can we talk about right-handed defensemen? I own a right-handed hockey stick. I know it's wood, and you're only going to see this if you're on YouTube here. So I could go for a first-round pick in this trade deadline. Just a reminder. So I might not be here next episode because I could potentially be traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Minnesota Wild for at least a third-round pick minimum. I'm not accepting it. I don't think this podcast would accept anything less. But yeah, just watch out. I might not be here next episode.
I'm also a right-handed defenseman. I might get picked up for around 1.1 mil and get signed for 2 years, kind of like Zach Bogosian just did for some reason out of the blue.
I'm not even a defenseman. I've never played defense in my entire life. But I am right-handed, so watch out.
I love it. So, all right. So we're comfortable getting rid of. I don't like saying getting rid of, but we're comfortable moving on from Liljegren.
But
comfortable moving on.
Give.
Yeah, for sure. We're comfortable moving on from Liljegren for Sean Walker. Let's look at some other D targets maybe. Like, okay, so hold on. If you give up, here's the problem though. If you give up a Liljegren for Walker, what other picks do you give up to make that trade work?
Depends on what Timothy Liljegren's worth, in your opinion.
All right,
I mean,
fair.
Under control, right-handed defenseman, 25 years old, NHL experience. What's that worth? I mean, that's gotta be worth it.
Is that worth just Sean Walker and plus his extension? Like, I don't know. I'd hope so. I'm okay with that. If we were able to get Sean Walker for Timothy Liljegren, I think I would do that.
I'd have to
maybe I'm wrong.
Walker more.
Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I'm giving up on Liljegren too early after that game. But again, he's like the reason why I've kind of changed my tune a bit on Timothy Liljegren is because Benoit was a diamond in the rough. We got incredibly lucky with him. But he's only, again, he's 6 months older than Timothy Liljegren. He's only 6 months older than Timothy Liljegren. So it's almost like you still have a good young defenseman who is RFA eligible, whose qualifying offer is going to cost significantly less, who looks good, plays well in your system, is big, and has those physical intangibles that you don't need in a defenseman, but are pretty helpful when you have them with a defenseman. So they definitely play two different styles of games. But Benoit has just been better defensively than Liljegren this year, and you'd rather have that.
Yeah. So
I
mean, it also can't how good is Timothy Liljegren in front of his own net?
Yeah, like what's the ceiling? Like is Timothy Liljegren's ceiling a third pairing D? Maybe, we don't know. So
that's what I was thinking today. Like he's not really offensive.
Nope.
He's not he's got his warts defensively. Like
he can transition.
He's kind of he can handle the puck decently.
But
his game, where
on retrievals, he has chances of giving up big event negatives on breakout. Like he does these things that cause negative plays. Doesn't always find the right assignment when
on sorts.
On
breakdowns. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not like
he's not a bona fide top four. And
that's what we need.
But is Walker a bona fide top four?
I don't know. That's a good question.
He was a captain from LA. Remember that?
Yeah.
He was maybe a sweetener, we'll call him, but LA gave him up in the Cal Peterson trade. Who else was involved in that trade? I can't remember. Not that it really matters. Cal Peterson, Sean Walker, and whoever. But another thing to consider with Sean Walker, how many games? Okay, no, never mind. 21-22, he had an injury season. And then 22-23, he played. Yeah, I guess coming back from an injury. I don't know. Never mind about that one. I thought there was an injury history that we were missing, but not really. So, yeah, where are you at? Would you do that? Walker for Timothy Liljegren? Honestly, I would say no.
Okay.
I would say no. Personally, I would say no.
Maybe I'm giving up on him too early just because that game is fresh in my mind. But yeah, that's just it's hard. It's hard to shake. It's hard to shake.
I also just think of cap efficiencies with Timothy Liljegren moving forward. Walker's looking for $5 million apparently.
That's
according to Frank though.
True. Okay. Fair enough. All right, let's move on from there. The big one that people seem to be talking about on Twitter today is Colton Parayko, who might be made available. So the thing with him, which makes me hesitant, I would say yes initially, But the problem is he has 6 more years and he's 30 years old and he makes $6.5 million. Are you willing to tie up your after like you're about to get John Tavares off of his $11 million deal? We knew when we signed John Tavares for 7 years at $11 million, the last 3.5 years are going to be the worst. We knew that the last year would be by far the worst, right? We're about to get that off after next year. Is it worth it to tie up yourself again to Colton Parayko? You're going to have him, Riley, Nylander, like kind of Austin Matthews, depending on if he resigns after his 4 years, plus a re-sign Mitch Marner. Like that's a lot of cap space already for not a lot of players. Like, and is that the right allocation? Maybe when TJ Brody comes off the books, you can say that it's like a TJ Brody but like we've seen TJ Brody's game deteriorate pretty quickly at 33. Are you willing to take on 3 more years of TJ Brody at $5 million? I wouldn't want to do that. And that's basically like, it's not apples to apples, Brody to Parayko, but that's kind of what would be happening here. How do you feel about Parayko?
In the short term, great. In the long term, it's like when you're planning long term, it's like, oh man, like that, you can just see that from a mile away, not looking good pretty soon. Like he's 30, he's born in 1993, I believe. Yeah. So he's going to be 31 like pretty soon. In May, he's going to be 31. Yeah. And you have 6 more seasons after this one, you said?
Yes. Let me double check. Maybe to 2030. So yeah, 6 more seasons after this one.
Yeah, I don't see it being worth it.
Yeah.
I just can't see this guy aging gracefully.
And we're in that unique, like the Leafs are actually, like, contrary to popular belief, like the Leafs are in a very unique scenario where they have a very relatively clean cap that they're working it with, right? Like the only players they have signed after next season is David Kampf at 2.4, Austin Matthews at 13, William Nylander at 11, Kyle Yarncrook at 2.1. He's in his last year. Ryan Reeves at 1.3, variable, and then Morgan Riley at 7.5. So it's like they have no real commitments. They have an open canvas to work with. Do you want to close that canvas very quickly to like help your run?
But it's also taken up a lot of money is being taken up by 2 of those players.
Of course, yeah. I'm just saying, like, you have like an open canvas to work with. Each time you add a player into that mix, right? Like long term, it kind of makes it a little bit smaller. The area you're working with is smaller. So it's not like they have long-term commitments is what I'm trying to get at.
They don't have too many. No, it's not like what the San Jose Sharks were working with like 3 years ago or whatever, where they had like 9 guys that were over 30 taking up 90% of their cap.
And that's a cause. And that's like a warning, like a warning sign, you know, like a foghorn, I guess. I don't know what the word is escaping my mind here, but like, let's use that as like a canvas to like kind of build on. So
like I love the fit right now. I really do.
It's so hard.
It's so good. Like it's just that really feels like an all-in move. Like you're putting it all in for this year and next year, and then you're eliminating like 4 years down the line. You're really like chopping yourself up.
Yeah, and if you like pros of making that move, like you said, for next year. You have basically your top 5 there for next year. If you have Timothy Liljegren, if you have Benoit, if you have McCabe, you have Riley, you have Parayko, you have 5 of your 6 defensemen. You only have to sign 1 defenseman, probably a left shot defenseman or right shot if you want to slide Jake McCabe to the left side. You have flexibility there. You don't like you basically have your decor locked up for the next 2 years, confirmed at like good numbers too, right? Because those RFAs aren't going to cost a lot. Cave's already signed. You have Morgan Riley locked in. Like you have that decor locked in for just under probably 15 mil. So, or around 15 mil. And then you just have to sign 2 more guys. So, I mean, I feel like a loser for saying no, because it's like, think about the cap in 3 years from now. But like, no, like you actually have to think like that. You know what I mean? Like it would be so much fun though.
It would be so much fun. Exactly. I'm in the same boat as you. It's so disappointing to say, I don't want this a guy that I think is pretty good. I don't want him because in 3 years he's going to be really bad.
Yeah.
Or in 3 years it's not going to be the right mix or whatever, right? So it's like, that sucks. But
all right, let's move on to another big strong. We talked about one big strong long D. Let's talk about another big strong long D. David Savard, Montreal Canadiens. He's another guy who's in a unique situation where he is signed for a year after this one. So he's not a UFA next year. Makes $3.5 million, signed for this year, next year. 33 years old. Definitely less of a commitment. Same thing applies where I just mentioned, where the pro of adding someone like this is that like you get him for next year and your decor is basically already locked up. Excuse me. I don't know how I'd feel about it. He looked good for Tampa.
Savard?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on him?
The thing that has gotten me like very, very interested in him is like Koliakovo and Corrado both do Montreal games, and they've both mentioned him being like, I wonder about this fit with the Leafs. Like, what is David Savard? He's a defensive defenseman. I think he's going to be 33 or 34 pretty soon. So you're getting him. It's either 34 next year or 33 this year. I can't remember.
33. You turn 34 in October. So it'll be 33 this year and then 34 for next year.
Yeah. And like, that's a guy that with a lot of miles on him, a lot of block shots too. So like, so that's where, okay, a little bit weary there, but it is what it is, whatever. He's not very good at moving the puck at all. He's better off the puck. He's better defending. But you get him for next year as well. So you get that kind of certainty, we'll say. And if Montreal retains on him, which I would imagine if they want a first-round pick, that's what they will absolutely have to do. Like, that's, but yeah, he plays a lot of minutes. The issue is with David Savard, a lot of people are going to throw, his RAPM charts are not good. Okay. Any defenseman like that, this type of archetype on a bad team, a defensive defenseman that struggles to move the puck, but is strong in other areas, obviously he's going to have bad underlying numbers. We've seen this time and time again. He's not a number 1-2. He's getting played like 20 plus minutes a night. He's not a 1-2. He'd be closer to, I'd say in terms of his quality, he's probably a 5. I'd say he's closer to Mario, like what I rated Mario Ferraro, that kind of defenseman, right? Not great at moving the puck, but good in other aspects of the defensive zone, right? So obviously his underlying numbers aren't going to be good because he's getting way overplayed on a very bad team. So that being said, would I want David Savard? It would have to be half retained, 1,000% half retained. And then right there, so 1.75, that alone is worth, what's that worth? Like that's worth like a 3rd round pick next year, is it not?
Maybe, yeah.
I think around there. So you're already getting kind of steep in terms of cap space. Okay, so minimum, he's going to be worth like a 2nd. I wouldn't be surprised if Montreal did that half retained. I could see him getting a 1st round pick.
So Montreal has a glutton of picks this like over the coming drafts, right?
Yeah.
What if I came, like, let's say I'm Brad Treliving and I came to you and I said, listen, I'll give you a 1st for David Savard, but you have to find a partner to half retain to double retain. Sorry. And you have to pay the price of the double retain and I'll give you the 1st. Because I don't think Savard is worth a 1st, even if he's half retained for 2 years. I might be wrong, but we saw Jake McCabe went for. I don't think he's worth that much. I think if you're able to convince Montreal to give a 4th, maybe 3rd, maybe to get another team, Chicago, to double retain for this year and next year, I think it makes it more worth it. I think it does. Is it necessary? Like, I don't even know. I just kind of thought of that on the spot. What are your thoughts on that?
Essentially, if you move Savard in, I think right now your Mendoza line. Do you know what the Mendoza line is?
Yeah.
Can you describe it?
Average, right? Like,
pardon?
Isn't it like 200 average? What is it?
So the Mendoza line is essentially like that level of play. It's replacement level player. Like he was the exact look at. Is that what it says?
It's exactly a 200 average. So if you're below the 200 average, you're like barely a competent MLB hitter. It's basically
Competent
replacement
player.
level.
Yeah. So he is the replacement level. So like if you're worse than the Mendoza line, you're not a player. You shouldn't be in the league. If you're above it, you probably should be. He was like always right on that line. Your line right now, I feel like has to be Timothy Logren. If you're not bringing in anything, or even Lyubushkin, I guess, so then you're pushing Lyubushkin out. So then you're bringing in Savard to replace Lyubushkin. That's kind of funny. Yeah, so if you bring in Savard and you have the choice between on the right side, because I still think McCabe is better than those guys on the right side. If you have the choice, you have to pick three. Who are you picking? You have McCabe, Lilgren, Lyubushkin, and Savard. Pick three.
To play in the first round of the playoffs for you?
Yes, correct.
Lilgren out. Like it's just that easy.
You think Lilgren? You think Lilgren over Lyubushkin?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. 100%. 100%. I think we're being clouded by like what we. I think like I don't understand.
What I would think that the argument for that would be is that TJ Brody's extremely soft in front of the net. He's a defensive defenseman that's always been soft in front of the net. So now you have Lilgren tries to be physical, but he's always a tad late tying up sticks, always a tad late on his check, and then things don't go too well for him, right? So if you have Lilgren and Brody on a pairing, you could get rinsed there. So if you replace, like, although Savard's 100% not going to move the puck as well as Lilgren, he's not going to provide any offensive value that you would get from Lilgren. You're now defending the front of the net much better. Like, does that makes you feel more comfortable too? That would be an argument for. An argument against is like, hey, remember last year when our defense couldn't move the puck?
Yeah.
It should be more.
That's fair.
So
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to that.
Yeah.
But like
I would say I would keep Lilgren over. I would keep Lilgren in that lineup. I would say it would be Savard over Lyubushkin. But then you're paying a first for a third pairing right D. So it's like,
yeah, it's expensive. I still don't even know if I would do the two.
But then you also have options. Say game one is a disaster.
Yeah.
How many times, like, we've seen this before. Game one is a disaster. Okay. Who looked the worst? You're taking a seat. Now we get to put in another guy and we get to try something else. Right?
Yeah.
Just my thoughts.
Feels light. Like the right-hand D market's super light. Other names on the list, Eric Johnson, Andrew Peak, not really much else there. Erica Branson somehow has having like a renaissance season analytically over in Columbus. Doubt they'll get part ways with him. So I don't know. Not an easy choice, but I think if we had to pick one right now, it'd be Sean Walker. Right? Fair enough. Fair to say.
If I were to pick one, yeah. That's where I feel like a lot of people are complaining about Tanev. Like, Tanev's so much better than all these guys we're talking about.
Yeah.
I understand Tanev is 33, 34. He has a lot of tread on the tires, but he hasn't missed many games. He's very good defensively. He can actually move the puck pretty well, not because he's fast. Like he's not, it's very actually cool to see him. Not cool. I don't know what the word is, but anyways, watching him move the puck is interesting simply because he's only able to move the puck because he's so smart. He is pretty damn slow, right? So to watch him move it, it's one little move this way, find the lane, puck's out of the zone.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
I would say like at least with Sean Walker, he like addresses the issue we have with all these other D in the sense that he's a better puck mover than all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like he absolutely is a better puck mover than all of them. And he's like actually like he's basically like a two-way guy. So like not like amazing upside, obviously offensive upside, but like I think he plays power play too for Philadelphia. So like there's something there to be able to be on that, right? So yeah, That's pretty much it for right-hand D, though, I think, right? I feel like that closes it out there. There's no what. Listen, you're not going to find a right-hand D who's big, physical, blocks shots, clears out the net well, defends the blue line, and is able to transition the puck really well and make a crisp first exit pass. That player is never available. So
no,
there's
their
gonna
names are like Adam Fox and Cale Makar.
Yeah, like you're gonna find a problem with them. So the other need that we were looking at for the team was centerman. This one is also thin. This one is also very thin. I'm gonna let's start with like the shittier guys first. Kind of go through them. Hear if any of them are interesting to you. I'll kind of hammer them off quick. Then there's two names. One that's currently not on the trade board but might be back on when this episode airs tomorrow, and one that's pretty high up on the trade board that I've come around to
just to correct you. Sean Walker does not play power play.
Doesn't play power play. No. That's good.
He plays PK.
Oh, well.
There you go.
I thought he had at least some power play minutes this year.
38 seconds, which is like below 5 other defensemen.
38 seconds on the power play this year?
A game.
Oh, per game. Okay. He's got 52 total on the season. Okay, well.
Yeah.
It's got some offense. That's some offense. So anyways, let's go with center. So a couple of the centers that were on the trade board, starting from the bottom, working to the top. Sam Carrick on Anaheim. It's an easy no for me. I'm not even going to give you the floor here for that one, but a couple other ones: Michael Granlund, Scott Lawton, Jack Roslovic, and Nick Dowd. Any interest in any of those guys?
You don't like Sam Carrick from Brampton, Ontario? Oh, he's from Markham. He played for Brampton. Former Leafs 5th-round pick. Come on, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I wouldn't want. I'm out on. I've liked the Sam Carrick story though. All right, sue me. This guy played 19 games for the Leafs. His last season for the Leafs was 15-16, and then he scratches and claws to get back into the lineup like 3 years later with Anaheim. And he's been on the Ducks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons now. This guy was looked like he was done for. I really like the battle with Sam Carrick, but would I want him on the Leafs right now? Unfortunately, we'll say no. So, what was the player you wanted to talk about? I'm sorry.
I just quickly fired off Granlund, Lawton, Roslovic, and Dowd. Any of those guys interest you? Like Granlund for me, no.
Roslovic.
Lawton's not good enough in my opinion.
No.
The term and contract is too much for
just not that good.
Him. Period.
Yeah.
Roslovic is like what? How is that going to help us at all?
Roslovic and Granlund is like
just don't.
Why them? Yeah. Why would you give up something for like another Max Domi type? Like
Granlund trying to fix that.
Exactly. Like you're trying to fix right now the fact that you have a center that can't play defense worth a shit at all. He cannot play defense. Transitions the puck very well. Generates odd man rushes very well. Cannot play defense, unfortunately. Can't make quick decisions. Neither can Roslovic or Mikael Granlund. Mikael Granlund also can't skate, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think, and especially Granlund, I think it's another year at $5 million. And as we mentioned, the Sharks aren't retaining. Right? Like the Sharks have 2 of their retention spots already taken by Carlson and Burns. Like they have to choose wisely who they're retaining on next if they do. Right?
Yeah.
So there's that. So Roslovic and Granlund are a no for sure. Who are the other ones you had there?
The last one was Lawton and then Dowd. Lawton we already talked about. No. Dowd is like kind of interesting. I haven't watched him at all, so I don't really know. But like at least like his numbers that he's putting up are like pretty like respectable on a terrible team. So that's always like something that you should take note of.
Not terrible.
The Capitals?
They're still in and around the playoffs. Like they're not.
They get shelled every game.
They're not totally dead yet, man.
I don't know how. I think that's just like a representation of just the entire league itself. But
the Capitals 3. Okay, so Tampa Bay has 3 games. They have 3 games in hand on Tampa Bay, and I'm having a field day.
They're 7 points behind.
They're 7 points out.
Yeah, depending on what happens tonight, if either of them play, and neither of them play tonight, so never mind on that one.
I'm dying here.
So,
anyways, Nick Dowd, like him versus David Kampf, like maybe you give Nick Dowd the advantage, but is that really what you want at 3C? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense
I
because like
feel like, I think the only one would be like worth giving something would be Wenberg, but
yeah.
he's not even that good offensively. He's like
So
below average.
here's the thing with Dow, just to close this out, I think the John Tavares on the third line looks a lot better. And I think that's just having a function of checking wingers and like the focus of that line. It's to kind of play like a dirty low cycle. I think he excels a little bit more when his line mates play like that. Nylander, the way he plays, I've never felt that they complemented each other. And as John Tavares has gotten older, I feel like it's gotten worse. So offensively, I like that. Like McMahon, Yarncrook, you can even put Bertuzzi or Dome. Like really, kind of anyone in there can play that like lower cycle, physical, grinded out kind of line, and that's perfect third line in the playoffs. Like that's kind of I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So that's kind of why I don't like Dowd, because I don't want to break that up. Like you said, Wengberg, that's who I'm looking for. That's one of the names, right? That's who I'm looking for. That's someone who can play top 6 minutes for you and would like. He's not obviously like he doesn't have that offensive upside, but he's a good, responsible enough two-way center where you could probably put him with Tyler Bertuzzi and William Nylander, or you can put him with Yarncrook and Nylander, and you got like a good second line there that with Yarncrook and Wenberg should be good enough defensively, that they're not too much of a negative for you, but would also be pretty potent offensively as well. So I'm on board with Wenberg. Again, I don't know acquisition cost. It's hard to speculate. I feel like it's a little harder to speculate for forwards than it is for D. Mantha just went super cheap and got half retained for it. So I don't even know.
When you break that down too, that is 2.85 retained on Anthony Mantha because his contract was 5.75. So 2.85 retained on Mantha for a second and a fourth. Like we've already broken down the values of what cap space retention costs. And Anthony Mantha, who like to me, he feels like in terms of what he is, he's kind of in the ballpark of who's the Swiss guy that plays on the Jets? He was playing on the Predators, and before that, he was on the Hurricanes, and before that on the Wild, and before that on the Islanders. Analytics darling, tough hands, 40-point-ish guy, hits a lot. This is going to bug me.
You missed me with this one. Where are you going with it, though?
He's in that ballpark of like that kind of value, I would
I see.
say. Like he's that type of archetype of guy. Like I think right now he's shooting 22%. He might not score a goal for the rest of the season. That's just the way hockey goes. His PDO's at 102. But come playoff time, hopefully it comes back. And what the funny thing is, if you don't believe me on that one, look what happened with Bo Horvat when he went from Vancouver to the Islanders last year. Everyone saw it coming. And guess what? It happened. He did not score very much for the Islanders in the regular season. And guess what? It came back. He's not a bad player. It's just, this is how PDO monster works. So with Mantha, like, I feel like he's putting up like a point every other game guy, but like he's a very solid player. Big body, can move pretty well, beat the hell out of Nick Cousins, which I'm sure Vegas fans will love. But yeah, second and a fourth for half retained Anthony Mantha. I think that's fantastic value for Vegas. Is he right-handed? Maybe they should have.
I think so.
Washington should have advertised him as a defense.
Right-hand D. He could have gone a
right-hand D-man. Could have won 3
So,
first-round picks.
Yeah, like I just did a quick run of what it would cost to retain, like the technical cost according to Puckpedia's little thing here to retain $2.5 million, which would, or actually no, it's not $2.5 million. Sorry, it should be 2.25.
No, it's 2.85.
Oh, 2.85. That's for
Mantha.
Oh, okay. Well, it's probably going to be in the same ballpark. 2.35 would be for Wenberg.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Just the late third. So
wow.
Yeah.
He went for a second and a fourth. Like,
yeah.
Gotta think about like that's Not bad, Vegas. Damn it. Again.
They did it again.
Freaking
They did it
team.
again. So I'm a fan of Wenberg. I'd want to bring in Wenberg if we could. Again, he's not like amazing offensively, but I think like we've seen enough offensive upside from him in the past that like it could work with
There's not much. It's
Yarncrook and like Nylander. But that's also like, listen, that's why William Nylander is here. He's not here to whatever. Like he's here to elevate the guys around him. Like he's a big boy now.
And so what I will say with that is, remember when they tried to give him his own line, but it was with David Kampf?
Yeah, that's
I can't even remember. It was like someone else on the other line where it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
That's an issue. I feel like Wenberg is a step up from David Kampf. He's
like,
a step up from Nick Dowd, where it's like, okay, maybe then you could try that line again and see if that works. But
he's not Chris Kunitz, but he's kind of like, you know what I mean? In that, where it's like a guy who can play with better players and still provide offensively, but also still play his own game. Right. Exactly. And he's not like, I'm not saying he's going to be Chris Kunitz, obviously, but yeah, like that's kind of the elk that I'm thinking of. Also, if you do that and play him with Wenberg, with Nylander and Yarncrook, you have the Stockholm Syndrome line, which I'm in love with. So from one suite to another, the last guy on the list here that's actually not on trade bait boards. Clickbait little title there. The guy that no one is talking about, but is all of a sudden getting brought up today. Elias Lindholm is all of a sudden potentially back on the trade market here, because it sounds like Vancouver might want to be like, we bid a little early. We would rather have Jake Gensel than Elias Lindholm. Guess what? Me too. I would as well. So if Brad Treliving can go and get Jake Gensel, do that instead of getting a center. I don't care. Because that's just disgusting. That'd be nasty. But if not, I'd be all over Elias Lindholm, because for the exact same reasons I said about Wenberg, but he's just better. Like he's just a better, like period. I don't think there's much more analysis needed in that, right?
I wonder, like, what if you were to, I have no idea how that would work and what Lindholm would get traded for. Like, how many times have we seen this? We saw it with Thomas Vanek back in the day. I want to say, did it happen with Matt Molson maybe too? I think Matt Molson as well. But like, these are I'm talking like 2010s that happened. But like, other than that, how many times have we seen a player play for 3 teams because they were traded twice in 1 year? Like and especially Vancouver's in a playoff spot. They're like first in the Pacific. How many times have we seen that where they trade for a player and then they trade him away? Like that would be very, very interesting from Jimmy Rutherford there. But we'll see if that happens. But obviously I want Elias Lindholm. Like, kidding me?
Like I'd pay whatever, like at this point, based on what we've seen so far, I'd pay whatever like Vancouver paid. I don't even remember what Vancouver paid. Okay, maybe I wouldn't pay what Vancouver paid, because I think they paid like a first to prospect and they have to salary match too. I don't know what the cost is, but if it's
they paid a couple prospects though that some people are very divided on.
True. If it's a first and like a prospect, I'd do that. I don't care. I'm not driving. Like, maybe I'm crazy.
With prospect though,
like, I don't know. Not Easton Cowan. Like that's where I am. I see everyone the same other than Easton Cowan. Maybe that's wrong, but I mean,
I think it is. But
for Lindholm, like when I think about Lindholm, I think about how good he was with Gaudreau and Kachuk.
Oh, it was Kuzmenko, Yoni Yermo, Hunter Brushewicz, round 1 pick in 2024 and a conditional 4th in 2024. Like Kuzmenko, a lot of people are like, oh, he was a cap dump. I mean, he's got 5 goals in 10 games, 6 points. Like,
I said he wasn't a cap dump.
Yeah. You said he was not a cap dump.
Was not correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say he's probably going to have value and will likely be flipped next year. But we'll see. He has more points than Lindholm since getting to Calgary.
That's always funny when that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, like he was a first. So like, a first
and the condition,
a roster player,
2 prospects,
2 prospects, which I don't know how you assess those. A first, a 4th, a roster player, and 2 prospects. So,
a lot. And the fourth is a third if they make the cup final. So it's basically a fourth. Basically a fourth because they're going to get bounced in the first round. But
I always love saying, I love the saying, I've seen it on Twitter, where it's like, yeah, we traded our first, the 32nd overall pick. We traded the 32nd overall pick. It's all good.
Yeah, hopefully the Leafs can trade the 32nd overall pick this year.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing. That's the only
plan.
way I will put it.
That is
the 32nd overall pick. It's pretty much a second. It would have been a second 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever. So, yeah, it looks like the more we actually break it down here, and we'll wrap this up in a second. The more we break it down, like the more I'd rather go after some of these centers than a defenseman. I feel like some of these centers are more of an upgrade than some of these defensemen. Yeah,
I think after going through the defensemen, I'm at the point where it's like, if we get Walker, that's fine, but like just leave it if we can't get to those other guys, because I don't want to pay the asking price. Go get a freaking center. Yeah, go get Weinberg. Go get Lindholm, because not the most important thing that we didn't mention. If we don't get one of those two guys, do you know where Weinberg or Lindholm are going?
Boston.
They're going straight to Boston. We got to play them in the first round. So you almost got to get it to like cuck the Bruins. That's like almost like half of it right there. But if you think about it though, that's kind of like a massive swing in like, not massive, but like think about that swing, right? Like that's kind of a swing in a matchup if it's between you two, right? So anyways, that's it.
Just getting a defenseman just to spite
center
just to spite your opponent. That's so funny. Anyways, yeah. So pretty much in summation, this trade deadline outside of Jake Gensel and maybe crazily Elias Lindholm could stink. Maybe Markstrom gets moved too. So there's that as well. But I don't think the Leafs should spend any assets on a goalie. So yeah, right-handed defenseman or a center. If it's not Sean Walker or Alex Wennberg, I will be very disappointed. I'd almost rather leave it, kind of thing. Or maybe it's someone that's off the board. Who knows? Maybe they make a hockey trade.
You never know. The hockey trade's always there.
Exactly. Do you have anything else to wrap it up?
That's it for me.
That's all. Thanks everyone for listening.
Go Leafs go. Let's get locked in on